What's up, guys? My name's Stu, and today we're going to be talking about 4 things I want to see in Star Trek Online for 2022. That's right, folks, 2022 is right around the corner, which means a whole new year of Star Trek Online content. Now, obviously, we don't really know what's to come for Star Trek Online in the coming year, but I thought I'd take the time to talk about a few things that I'd like to see. A lot of you probably already know that my friend Augmented Dictator Games made a video very similar to this. He went over several items in his video, which is why I'm going to be limiting mine to 4. 2 of these are going to be topics Augie didn't talk about, and the other 2 are going to be ones he did talk about, but I want to go into further detail on. Number 1 on my list is a buff for engineering captain's abilities. Engineers have always felt a little underpowered compared to the other 2 careers, and that's because of some of their captain's abilities. Too many of them just don't benefit certain build types at all whatsoever, and one of them in particular doesn't help any build types. That's the first one I'm going to talk about: rotate shield frequencies. What this ability does is give a small amount of shield regeneration and damage resistance to your shields. And when I say small, I mean small. I'm not even going to get into the whole shields are useless in stow argument because we've been through it already, it's been said a million times at this point. But I can safely say, as someone who has been playing an engineer character for 12 years now, this ability has never helped anyone and it needs to go away. This ability is unlocked on engineers at level 7. So let's look at what tactical and science get at level 7. Tactical gets attack pattern alpha, which is very helpful for DPS due to its buffs to critical chance and severity. Science characters get sensor scan, which is a damage resistance debuff. It's not as good as attack pattern alpha, but it's still something that's going to benefit their damage output. And that's exactly what engineers need here, something that will benefit their damage output, not some useless shield heal. Nadion Inversion is another engineering ability that could use a rework. What this ability does is significantly lowers your weapons power cost and gives a nice buff to subsystem power drain resistance. This is a great ability if you're flying an energy weapon build, but it is completely useless for torpedo or EPG builds, because they generally don't use energy weapons, so they have no need to cut their weapons power cost. Both of them are actually much more reliant on auxiliary power. Nadion Inversion really needs something added to it that's going to benefit torpedo and EPG builds. Miraculous Repairs has a similar problem to rotate shield frequencies. It's another useless heal. Yes, it's a more powerful heal than rotate shield frequencies, which isn't saying much, but it is still not very helpful in the current state of the game, especially at the elite level. Because if you're taking enough damage that you need a big heal, this is not going to be enough. That's why most tank builds often rely on the DPRM or the Protomatter Projector as a panic button. Miraculous Repairs just doesn't cut it, and it needs to be replaced with something more useful. Personally, I would love to see this ability changed to something that affects my firing cycle haste on my energy weapons and the cooldown of my torpedoes. Being able to fire my weapons faster is going to be far more helpful than any heal will ever be. A while ago on Twitter, Augie proposed the idea of a personal trait that lowers the minimal cooldown of intrusive energy redirection. I actually really like this idea because intrusive energy redirection is the only engineering captain's ability I actually like, and the ability to keep it active more often would be a huge benefit for engineer characters. Of course, if you're going to introduce one for engineers, you're going to have to do one for tactical and science as well. Honestly, this idea probably wouldn't be that necessary if my other ideas were implemented, but it's one I thought I'd put out there anyway. The next thing on my list is the Superior Romulan Operative Bridge Officer trait, and how non-Romulan faction characters really need better access to it. Superior Romulan Operative is, without question, one of, if not the best bridge officer trait in the game. What it does specifically is give a plus 2% to critical chance, plus 5% to critical severity, and reduces the cooldown of your cloaking device by 15%. Though it's just those first 2 that make this trait the best in the game. Well, no, that's not totally true. What really makes this the best bridge officer trait in the game is the fact that it stacks. So that 2% crit chance and 5% crit severity, multiply it by 5, because that's how many bridge officer seats most ships have. The problem is you're only going to get 5 of them if you are a Romulan faction character. Romulan Republic characters can easily obtain bridge officers with this trait through recruitment assignments in the duty officer system or just through the exchange, but those bridge officers will always be Romulan faction only. So Federation, KDF, and Jem'Hadar characters won't be able to use them. Currently, there is only one way for a non-Romulan faction character to get access to a bridge officer with Superior Romulan Operative, and that is through the Embassy Fleet Holding. There is one bridge officer available at this holding that has the Superior Romulan Operative trait, the rare Romulan Male Tactical Officer candidate. You can pick up multiple copies of this bridge officer, but the Superior Romulan Operative is still only available on the tactical version, meaning Federation, KDF, and Jem'Hadar faction characters will only be able to have 2, maybe 3 Superior Romulan Operatives, whereas Romulan faction characters will have access to 5, because they can get science and engineering bridge officers with this trait. Which means Romulan faction characters have a noticeably higher potential for critical chance and critical severity. What I think should be done to remedy this is to remove Superior Romulan Operative from that rare bridge officer and put it on all of the very rare bridge officers. Currently, all of the very rare bridge officers have Superior Subterfuge, so I say just swap that out for Superior Romulan Operative. This would finally give Federation, KDF, and Jem'Hadar characters equal access to the Superior Romulan Operative trait. Next on my STO 2022 wishlist, a new fleet holding. Now, I get that a new fleet holding would be a huge undertaking for Cryptic, so I know that this is kind of a big ask, but I really do think it would greatly benefit the game. For one, the last fleet holding we got was the Draenor Fleet Colony, and that launched in September of 2017. So yeah, we're kind of overdue for one. But the big reason why I would like to see a new fleet holding is that it would make a fantastic dilithium sink, something Star Trek Online has needed for quite some time. In Augie's video, he suggested the idea of a new reputation as a dill sink, but a reputation isn't really a good dilithium sink. Yeah, you have to spend dilithium and other stuff to get the gear, but reputations also reward a lot of dilithium for just leveling them up, so it kind of evens out. What Star Trek Online needs is something for a bunch of players to be throwing their dilithium into consistently for a good long while, and fleet projects for a new holding definitely fit that description. Now for number 4 on the wish list, Legendary Akira Command Warship. That's right, we're talking about this again. This is something both Augie and I have been begging for a while now. The Akira is a long-time fan favorite ship, which is why I think it should be made into a legendary version. In fact, this ship was so popular among the fans it actually inspired the look for the NX-01 for Star Trek Enterprise. Now, Cryptic generally doesn't release legendary ships on their own. They're usually in some kind of bundle. It can be bundled with another legendary ship, or several other legendary ships, or this could be paired with another level 65 boost, because we still don't have one of those for standard Federation characters. Honestly, I'm not really a big fan of the level 65 boosts, but if one is paired with a legendary Akira, I don't think I'd mind so much. Now, why should this be a command ship? Because torpedo builds. As you all probably know by now, Concentrate Firepower 3 is a key ingredient for a successful torpedo build. Why do I want to put a torpedo build on the Akira? Because canonically, this ship is a torpedo boat. Seriously, look how many torpedo tubes the Akira has. There's 4 here on the front of this pod, 4 more that go off to the side and the aft of the ship, and then 4 more that do the same thing on the other side, and then 2 more on each side of the saucer. That's 16 torpedo tubes! And actually, it could be argued that there's a 17th launcher as well, because in Star Trek First Contact we see an Akira class firing torpedoes from the underside of the saucer section. But yeah, my point is that this thing has a lot of torpedo bays, more than any other canon Starfleet ship, and that is why I desperately want to have an Akira that can support a torpedo build. And now for the last part, why should a legendary Akira be a warship? Like the Defiant, Saber, and Steamrunner class ships, this ship was designed to fight the Borg, and it also saw a great deal of action in the Dominion War, so obviously it needs to be heavily tactical focused. And what's more tactical focused than a warship? I'm sure there are several people who would say that a legendary Akira should be a Strike Wing escort like the original Tier 6 version. And that's actually exactly why I don't want the legendary version to be a Strike Wing escort. I'm of the opinion that legendary ships need to be different from their originals. Cryptic has done this plenty of times before. The original Odyssey class variants were Star Cruisers, but the legendary version is a Dreadnought. The original Miranda is a light cruiser, but the legendary version is a multi-mission cruiser. And the original Kelvin Constitution was a heavy command cruiser, but the legendary version was an intel battleship. So a warship is definitely different from the original Akira, but it still very much fits the theme of the ship. Ideally, what I would like to see out of it is something similar to the Mirror Gagarin or the United Earth Defense Force vessel that we got recently. A command ship that's also a warship, decent maneuverability. I wouldn't even be upset about a 4-4 weapons layout. Honestly, I kind of prefer it, because that just means room for one more mine in the back. Clearly, the Akira has enough aft launchers to support that. Okay, I'm just going to say one more thing about this, and then I'll finally shut up about it. If a legendary Akira does become a thing, please, for the love of God, don't give it a pilot seat. It doesn't need one, it serves no purpose, and we already have a legendary warship with pilot seating, so we don't need another one. Okay, I know I said this was only going to be 4 items, but I thought of one more while recording this voiceover, so now it's going to be 5. And number 5 is a revamp for the original Odyssey model. I'm sure plenty of you know this by now that I am a huge fan of the Odyssey class, but the original Odyssey, being a Tier 5 ship using the Type 6 hull, really shows its age at this point. We already know that a revamp of the Yorktown is on its way, and while Thomas Moroney has said they likely won't have time to revamp every single variation of the Odyssey, meaning that unfortunately the Endeavor and Sojourner probably won't ever get this treatment, he did say, if he ever has the time, that he'd like to go back and revamp the original Odyssey class, because it is an iteration of the Enterprise. Like I said, I am a huge fan of the Odyssey class, and this is something I would love to see. So yeah, those are 4 things I'd like to see happen for Star Trek Online in 2022. Now with this kind of thing, obviously I can really only speak for myself. Same with Augie, he can only really speak for himself in what he wants to see in Star Trek Online. So if there's anything he or I haven't covered, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Though, please, let's try not to get ridiculous with it. I don't want to see anything like, get rid of all the lockboxes, or remake the game in Unreal Engine. It's never gonna happen. Keep it realistic, guys. Anyway, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. It's YouTube, you know the drill. My name's Stu, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, brought to you by My Insomnia.